Hi, what's going on, guys? It is time for the review of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 10, titled The Last Generation. Thanks so much for joining me for this review, folks. And before I go on for this review, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Also, after this video, if you like what I had to say, even if you disagreed with me, I still appreciate you watching anyway, guys. But go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and I will provide as much information on my behalf, reviews, talking about pop culture, all that stuff. So, yeah, provide that for you guys. You can find 150,000 other channels out there on YouTube that talk about the same thing, but we are all part of the same community and we all have differences of opinion, and that's okay. So let's get on with this review because here's the thing. Speaking of differences of opinion, there were issues with this franchise for a long time. Not that I'm saying that this season was perfect, because it wasn't. This season had minor flaws, but as much flaws as, let's just say, your average, you know, movie or show that you still watch time and time again, despite its flaws. These flaws are nothing that would take you out of the series or episode or movie, if you will. All right. In this case, with season 3 of Star Trek Picard, aka TNG season 8. Um, this is there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with calling this TNG season 8 because that's what I think this was intended to be, a proper send off. But anyway, there's things in this franchise that that hey, a lot of people may agree with, and a lot of other people may not, may agree with, or whatever. Okay, there's always differences of opinion. All right. And for Star Trek fans are very passionate. Now, they're generational. It's very generational. I mean, you're talking about a franchise that existed since the late 60s, mid to late 60s. So, and it's 2023 right now. So there are generations of fans out there who love this franchise in their own way. But there's also people in this world, not just with this franchise, but with other things out there. It's not necessarily just with pop culture, but there are people out there that tend to use something as a shield or a guard or something. And that's not what Star Trek is all about, man. Star Trek is all about solving problems, solving issues. I mean, this is not what it's all about, but this is a big piece of what Star Trek is about solving issues, agreeing to disagree, the human evolution, if you will, of progressing instead of regressing. And progressing isn't saying something simply because it's a powerful statement. You have to believe in what you are doing, what you are saying, and be the best that you can be. Don't settle for just mediocre because, like, Star Trek really, as a kid, for me personally, it taught me to always go reach for the stars. Do the best you can do, and if you fail, you do it again. Now, I may not live the life that others find ideal, and that's fine, but I'm happy. I'm happy, and that pisses people off. That pisses people who are not happy off because subconsciously they probably wish that they can be in that frame state of mind, you know? And listen, it sounds like a personal issue if you are going through that. But don't use people as a punching bag. Don't go after others because you can't complain to this one person, so you have to go to this person because they're easy. Star Trek is all about problem solving. Star Trek was all about resolving issues without having to resort to the extreme. And there's a lot of allegorical episodes out there that represent that. Now, Star Trek has terrific writing, good Star Trek. And it's up to the audience to take that and use something from that episode or that movie and relate it to your own situation. It's great. It's awesome. I mean, that's what it's there for. Now, in this case, with season 3 of Star Trek Picard, is this the Star Trek that we all grew up with, that we all know and love? Not really. Star Trek is not a revenge story. And that's what most of the Star Trek movies tend to do, is that, I mean, it all started from Khan. Let's be real. Star Trek is all about, the human adventure, going out there and seeing what the fuck is good in space. What's out there beyond Pluto, beyond, I mean, what is out there? Now, Star Trek has covered a lot of things, a lot of stories. I mean, for fuck's sake, they try to go find God, and they found some creepy old man, floaty face in the sky, and that's just, I mean, it's gone through stages of stories. So, when you have shows like Star Trek Discovery or Star Trek Strange New Worlds, you have to ask yourselves, what are they going to bring that we have not seen before? And will I give a shit? That is the big question. Why do I care? Why do I have to care? You have to ask yourself. And if you find more than 3 reasons, then for yourself, I'm happy that you found some sort of escapism, some sort of peace of mind by using something and relating to it. Whatever it is that people do with pop culture, that is their own business, and you have every right to do so. Now, before I get into my initial review, Star Trek fans, like Star Wars fans, are pretty weird. Weird in a it could be bad, it could be great. But you have a lot of strange Star Trek fans out there on social media, and I'm not talking about you guys in particular. I'm talking about, people out there who, they're not generally real hardcore fans of this. They're fans of what they think it does for them. And that's why they have this weird sense that you want to go on social media and use that platform to be a Star Trek fan, but you're also going after people who just genuinely love this franchise. And I'm sorry that they don't like Discovery as much as you do, but that doesn't mean that you can label people as ists and phobes and all of this stuff. We like the same shit you do. It's just, I'm sorry that, they tend to like the Star Trek that doesn't practice ideology, and they focus on story and character first, as opposed to delivering the message. And you know something, delivering the message is a bad thing. I'm sorry, but it is. And it's if you're a screenwriter, and the first thing you do before you type that first letter of your script, if you sit there and think, well, gee, what message should I send? You're already lost. Your script is DOA. DOA. So, with that being said, Terry Matalas went into this season. He put his dick out all over the table and said, we're going to go and tell a next generation story. Not only that, but we're going to give them a proper send off. With last week's episode, Vox, which also revealed Jack Crusher's, um, his story, basically, who he is and what kind of DNA he shares. He's a Borg. He's a genetic Borg. He is I guess you could say, the first of his kind who is just born with this techno virus, if you will. And it's pretty creepy. It really is. It's also intense. And some people were happy about it. Some people were unhappy about it. And I get why you were unhappy about it. I totally get it. The Borg has been done to death. They were sort of kind of ruined during Star Trek Voyager, but not really. But they were used in season 2 of Picard in the most dumbest fashion. Now you can flex and use all the mental gymnastics you want to try to bend the reasoning why it was pretty cool. I guess if you like it, great. That's awesome. No judgment on you. I just didn't like it. I hated it actually. It really killed what the Borg was for me until I watched this and I said, okay, if the villain reveal is to be the Borg, this is the correct way to do it. I'm just happy that they didn't try to attempt to do another season of Picard by damaging the Borg. At that point, I really wouldn't care what they would do next. So they had one more shot to do. In this shot, they decided to bring Alice Krige back as the Borg Queen. I'm not sure if that was her in the makeup. I'm not sure if that was animatronic or someone else, but it was definitely her voice. 100%. She's also in the credits. So there. Anyway, so that to me, when I saw that, I thought, oh, gee, they're retconning all of season two. Maybe not season one because they talk about the positronic Picard, which is stupid, by the way. But anyway, we just move on from that. This is a. You could also look at seasons one and two of Picard as that is a bad part of his life that I don't ever want to go back and revisit ever again. Let's go to the part of his life where he reunites with Riker and Worf and Geordi and Troy and Data and Crusher and all of them. That's a much more interesting story. So you could look at it that way, that Picard season 1 and 2, yeah, they did happen, and yeah, you can't really flex it. They did happen, but you could also argue and say, well, they kind of retcon season 2 because there's nothing in season 2 that they even mention in this season of Picard. Maybe the Raffian 7, them being exes, but they really didn't delve into that. They just mentioned it one time and they just moved along. And now at the end of this new episode, which is the 10th episode, they're colleagues. They're not lovers, which is stupid. So, but anyway, all right. So let's get into this episode. Um, First off, we were left with the Enterprise D uh, being revealed, and them using the Enterprise D because it's the only ship in Starfleet that doesn't really have any connections with the other starships out there because it's an older model. It's kind of ancient, but it's kind of cool. So they use that, and they're warping into space. And the first thing that we see on the opening of this episode is a message from President Anton Chekhov, not Pavel Chekhov, Anton Chekhov, which was a nice, beautiful, touching tribute to Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the Kelvin timeline. Now, regardless of how you feel about those films, regardless of how you feel about that particular Chekhov, it is a very beautiful, touching tribute to Anton Yelchin. And I think that Terry Metalis, that was nothing but just beautifulness. It was great. Nice touch by also having Walter Koenig come back and do the voice. But if you notice that Anton uh, doesn't have a strong Russian accent. He does mention his father at the end of that message, which was also reminiscent to what the message, the president from Star Trek 4, from what he said, warning Earth about the Borg, how everyone, all of Starfleet's youth are now being assimilated into the Borg and all of those things. I thought that was beautiful. And I thought that was a great opening to hear the crew of the TNG Enterprise listening to Walter Koenig, the original Mr. Chekhov himself, giving the warning to Starfleet. The president of, I mean, come on. That was awesome. Unexpected, and it was fan service, but it was done again in the correct way instead of just dangling the keys going, "Remember Star Trek?" No, they actually used that as that's part of their world. So I just thought that was beautiful. So anyway, so they are warping into they stop by Jupiter, and the Borg uses the planet to kind of hide itself in a sense. So when the Enterprise approaches the Borg ship, they realize that Jack, he's there. Troy senses him. The sensors, all of that stuff. It's all pointing towards Jack Crusher's um, presence there. So they want to get to him, but then the Borg drops their shields and their weapons kind of just move in different directions, basically giving an invitation to the Enterprise to come on inside and let's go play some Borg school. Because here's the thing, the Borg Queen has Jack. Jack is now under this he is just he's all Borg, and he is giving the order to kind of like, giving the order to the Armada now, which is Starfleet, that is controlled by the Borg, to go after the space dock. And this space dock is just getting obliterated from every starship. And then there's the Titan, which is still being hijacked by the youth up on the ship. The Borg assimilated the younger versions of the crew. So there's Seven of Nine, there's Raffi. There's a few people out there that are just trying to regain control of the ship back, but it's just failing horribly throughout this episode, to the point that they were almost pretty much shot in the face, until things happen. Now, the things that happen were the things that led up to this. And I remember thinking, watching earlier on the show, that every time it went to the Raffi scenes with Worf, I enjoy Worf. I love Worf. I loved Worf, and and I liked Raffi this time because or Raffaella, she's grown much more into a likable character who is written well, as opposed to the first two seasons. She is just this really annoying character, and it's no fault on the actress herself. She's just given a job to do, and she's doing the best she can with the script that she's given. However, with this season, she was great as Worf's companion. There's a character arc there within herself. I mean, it's not like you have to watch seasons one and two to understand her character. She is introduced in this show as if you've never seen her or have heard of her before. So anybody who has not watched seasons one or two of Picard and they go into this, it will give you a very nice insight of her character, her backstory, all of those things, all really wrapped up in like a couple of sentences, and then we just move on. And the payoff to her character, it's great. But before I get into that, I want to talk about how the Enterprise D, okay, the Enterprise itself from the next generation, we only saw maybe like a handful of the same shots from this Enterprise as we watched the entire show. And there were a couple times where the show, took some chances and gave us some really good effect shots of the Enterprise going into warp drive, all of those things. But in this episode, this ship does things that we all wished we could have seen it, do in the next generation films, the show, all of those things. Now, I get it. A starship is not the Millennium Falcon. So when it's going through corridors and all this stuff, your ship should not be spinning around in circles. It shouldn't be doing all of those things like a roller coaster. However, to give that same thrill, okay, for a starship that just goes one way, there's a part there where Mr. Data goes, he begs Geordi to just trust him, to go inside the Borg ship so they can find this beacon and destroy the beacon. Once you destroy the beacon, you destroy the Borg Queen, you destroy the Borg Cube. Therefore, you disconnect the Borg that's taking over Starfleet, and the day is saved, right? But it ain't that easy. Okay, so to get inside of this thing, Geordi's like, we're screwed. We can't get in there. And Data's like, no, trust me. Let me do this. I know I can do this. This was the moment that I've always wanted to see come from Mr. Data, was, and it wasn't destroying the scimitar or or going on the Baku and learning how to be a kid from a child, uh, hanging out in straw. No, this was the moment Mr. Data got to show off his awesome piloting skills by piloting the Enterprise D inside of the Borg cube. And the way it's shot is as if the camera is focusing on the Enterprise. And all of the Enterprise is doing is it's going sideways to sideways, down, up, all of those things. It's not spinning in circles. It's not like JJ's Enterprise at the end where it just goes warp drive and spins in circles, and all that stuff. It's not Star Wars. And that is the problem that Alex Kurtzman and Akiva Goldsman, okay, the people who run Strange New Worlds, Discovery, probably Section fucking 31, which I don't give two shits about, that they don't understand. They love Star Wars. They like Star Trek, kind of. They remember the Engage, the Scotty Beam Me Up, and all of those things, but they're not real fans. So they go out there and they make Star Wars, but they slap the Star Trek name onto it. And I hate that shit. All right. This was proper. This is how you make the Enterprise do what you want it to do without getting stupid. And When Mr. Data goes inside of that Borg cube and you see the Enterprise, the camera is focusing on the Enterprise going through all of these. It just moves like through this corridor of sorts, and it's going through the ship. You see the massive size of this Borg cube that an Enterprise can fly inside of it like it's the Millennium Falcon flying into the Death Star. It was awesome. And to see it phaser fire and all this stuff and hearing those familiar sound effects from when I was a kid in the 90s being used in a really cool moment like this, it was orgasmic. It was great. Well, I had the biggest nerd boner when Dr. Crusher uses the weapons manually, and the Enterprise is shooting the weapons, off the Borg ship, and you hear Goldsmith's theme playing, and it's just God. It was so good. It was so good. It was so good. It was so good. Yeah, it blew my mind. And I watched the episode like 3 times. It's trying to figure out things that I missed beforehand. But that moment at the end was, yeah, it was like action schlock, but it was like action schlock with a purpose, and I loved it. It was great. And so eventually, Picard he wants to go down into the Borg ship. He wants to confront Jack, and Riker, volunteers to go along with him, and then Worf says, "I will make it a threesome." And Riker goes, "Do you hear yourself?" I thought that was cool. I love Worf, and Worf and Riker were like the MVPs of this season. I absolutely love their characters. Jonathan Frakes was never really a good actor. Let's be real, but I still enjoyed him as Riker because I enjoyed his presence. There's something about his voice that's commanding, but also just you don't mind that guy telling you a bedtime story. It's Jonathan Frakes, it's fact. Um, and with Worf, and I mean, it was beautiful because when they went down together, Picard looks at Riker and tells him, he says, "I'm no longer your captain. I have to be a father now." I thought that was wonderful. I thought that was great how he went himself to go save Jack to confront the Borg Queen, and the Borg Queen is just this messed up, just desperate version of a Borg who's really trying to maintain what the Borg collective is, but you could just tell it's a tragic story, I guess you could say, but you don't feel sorry for them. The Borg are assholes. They deserve to be gone, to be eliminated. And so as the Enterprise is approaching the beacon, you see how it's in front of the beacon, but Dr. Crusher wants to destroy it, but Geordi's like, "Wait a minute." uh Data reveals what the cause can be for opening fire on this thing, and that would cause the Borg cube to be destroyed, meaning that would have like at least 1 minute to get the hell out of there. But Riker, Worf, and Picard, they're down there with Jack. They could all die, and I love how Terry Metalis just implements the idea in your head that these three are going to go, because somebody's going to die. This is the finale. This is the end. This is where it all comes down to. So anything can happen. And you get the idea that they're not going to survive this thing. But then once they knock out the beacon, because Deanna Troy says, "Jordy, we either sacrifice them down below and we get out of here, but if we wait," and I'm paraphrasing it, "but if we wait and we don't do anything about it, then everyone else in the galaxy is going to die." So you're going through that. And Dr. Crusher, as someone who is a mother who is trying to weigh the pros and cons, I can only imagine how difficult that is to make that decision, especially someone who has been trying to protect her son for this long. So you do see the anguish in her face. You see how Geordi, her best friend, is looking at her like, this is not a decision for me that's going to be easy, not for any of them, you know. And wonderful moment with Riker. He realizes that that this is going to be his time. And he says, he says that I love you, Imzadi. We'll be waiting with our boy, which was beautiful and sad, and just you feel the weight of that. And Worf, it's just Worf. Every day's a good day to die. So he's just standing there, and right at the last second, while Picard is trying to get Jack back as Jack, okay, Picard takes one of them Borg wires and sticks it in the back of his neck and assimilates himself. And he realizes that I've been running away from the Borg for this long, been trying to run away, but the only reason I will come back is to save my son. And when he does so, he tells Jack that his life, pretty much, and I'm paraphrasing, has gotten better and has changed for the better because of Jack. And because Picard was someone who never really wanted a family. I mean, it goes from the first episode of Encounter at Farpoint. I mean, I'm not good with children, and every time he's around kids, just doesn't, he's not a family man. But this changed his life. And this is something that he wants to be a part of. And it was beautiful because he says that if you don't want to go, then I'm going to stay here with you. And that's when Jack wakes up and realizes, like, shit, my dad's about to give up his life with me, for me, and he doesn't want him to die. So snaps out of it, gets his dad out of that, pulls the plug, looks at the Borg Queen, and pretty much its middle fingers all up in the air. The Enterprise appears right above them, just like a chopper. And because Riker was talking to Troy, saying, "I love you, Mzadi. We will be waiting with our boy." Troy can sense shit. So she knew where their location was based off of that. Thank you, Riker, right? So she goes right into the same seat where she crashed the ship the first time. And I believe Terry Metalis was like, we're going to make her do something that's actually worth, this whole thing. And and then they beam him up, leaving the Borg Queen to be killed. And the Borg ship is destroyed. And that is the end of the Borg. And you get to see the Enterprise do some really cool flybys. It was just great. It was awesome. And so, Seven of Nine and Raffi, while they're on the Titan, they were trying to take on the fleet and all these things. But because Picard and the crew destroyed the Borg ship, they destroyed the connection from the Borg to Starfleet. Therefore, it disconnected the Borg from the Starfleet officers, and they show LaForge pointing a gun at Seven of Nine, while Seven of Nine and Raffi are pointing the gun at them. And when they snap out of it, LaForge gets emotional. She starts crying, and that's when Seven of Nine gives her a hug and says, "It's over. The nightmare is over." So now we get to the ending of this, which to me reminded me of Return of the King. There were like 50 endings, but I don't care. I still loved it, because it was a nice way to wrap up everyone's story, and also open up a possibility. So we open up with Riker doing the captain's log, and you see the Enterprise D and the Titan flying off, and in that shot, it's still surreal to me that the Enterprise D is on television today, still doing its thing, and it's great. Seven of Nine is being spoken to by um, Tuvok, Admiral Tuvok from Star Trek Voyager, and it's a beautiful scene for myself as a Voyager fan. Um, to see Seven of Nine's character get the the recognition she deserves. I mean, she earned that, and it was great because Tuvok tells her, says, you hijacked the Titan to do this. Um, the crew of the USS Enterprise has been cleared, but you're still a part of that. Seven of Nine is anticipating what she thinks Tuvok is going to say, so she's like, "Let me cut you right here. I'm going to resign from Starfleet and all this stuff because no one really agrees with the things that I do, my judgment calls, all this stuff." She's different. she's a different breed of heroism. So Tuvok plays a message from Captain Liam Shaw, rest in peace. Um, and it's a holographic message, and it's pretty much like a review. And in that message, he recommends, even calls her Seven of Nine, and recommends her to be a captain, despite the rules that she breaks or the policies that she doesn't believe in. But he acknowledges how brave and loyal she is, and that yeah, she breaks rules, but maybe those rules were broken to begin with. And it was beautiful because you see how she appreciates this man, this person who was her captain, who she thought was just this whatever people say online, this toxic white guy, he's just such a bastard. Da, da, da. Yeah, yeah, he's none of those. He appreciates her. He sees her, and she realizes that, and you see the tear go down her face, and then Tuvok says, um, "Resignation is denied, Captain. Captain Seven." Which I was like, "Fuck yeah, man!" Happy that she got that. So then we get to uh, Data and Counselor Troy. Data just talking about his feelings, his transitioning from droid to human, all this stuff. It was great. And you can see Troy just kind of like, uh huh, uh huh. She's looking at her thing. She's really planning a vacation while Data's just talking all this stuff. And it's kind of going overtime a little bit. What I loved about it was just a nice little moment between Riker and Troy, but it was it was more Riker when Data leaves the room, and she and he's like, "Is he still batshit?" And she's like, "Stop it!" Just it was. I felt like that was improvised, but and if it wasn't, that's a good job on them for that little moment. But it was cool, and Worf and Raffi. Worf leaked out all the information, all the good things about Raffaella, to the press and all of this stuff. So her family, who thinks she's this big piece of shit, drug addicted loser, is not. She is a hero. She helped Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise save the world. That's huge. So it opens up that scene with Raffi looking at the her little pad, and it's a message from her son, talking about her granddaughter, acknowledging that the family has now they're now speaking and everything's on good terms, all of those things. And she's got to thank Worf for it. Worf acts like he didn't do anything, but he said whoever leaked this information is a considerable maverick or something like that. And she says, and a very good friend. Worf is not a hugger, but he immediately goes to hug Raffi. And Raffi understands that Worf is fucking Worf. Okay, Worf is not a hugger. He's not compassionate. He's none of those things. A fucking warrior. But when Worf approaches Raffi and embraces her, you see how she pauses. This is a testament to the actress' performance. She pauses with her hands like this, but then she breaks down more and wraps herself up around it. It was very quick, but it was fucking real, and it was beautiful. And I thought that was a very nice moment for Worf and for Raffi. There's closure with her character. There's closure within Worf. She tells him to go and always continue to be a warrior for peace, which which was written well. So I thought that was cool. And after we know that we Riker, in his captain's log acknowledges that Dr. Beverly Crusher is now Admiral Crusher, and we get a nice moment from Picard, Riker, and Geordi, and they're on board the Enterprise D. Now, I felt like this scene was supposed to be or meant to play into possibly moments or days after all of this stuff happened, but no, they said 1 year later. And then the Enterprise D is now part of the starships that are part of the Starfleet Museum. Um, And then it cuts to them three, Geordi, Picard, and Riker on the bridge of the Enterprise D, shutting off the lights and all this stuff. But they're wearing the same stuff they wore during their adventure uh, throughout the show. So I felt like that scene was supposed to be there, but they edited that and put that as a later scene, I guess, if you will. Um, but anyway, so we cut to this again. There's like 15 endings, but I don't care if there's like 30. I'll take it all. We see a shuttlecraft approaching, to space dock. It's Admiral Picard, it's Admiral Crusher, and you see Jack. He's wearing a Starfleet uniform, with the red shoulder top, and he's pacing around. He's a little nervous because it's his first day. We all know that he's wearing Star. Okay, we knew that he was going to join Starfleet and follow in his dad's footsteps. So they're talking about, like maybe there's a little bit of nepotism because of the name and all this stuff. And Picard says names don't matter. Names don't matter, right? Okay. And he says, well, he's a little nervous. And he says, yeah. He says, well, I don't even know what ship that you're assigned to. And Jack's like, yeah, that's more the reason why I'm nervous. But as the shuttlecraft approaches the ship, we see the Titan. That's when Picard says, of course, the Titan. Why not? You were on board when all of that happened. It's appropriate for you to be on the Titan. It's appropriate that they would want you there. But as the camera pans over the saucer, slowly reveals the serial number NCC 1701G, USS Enterprise. And I went completely batshit crazy for Jack Crusher and everyone else there because I was in my room going, this is the end. I wanted to buy the Titan because I thought the Titan was cool. You slapped the Enterprise. That is the next Enterprise. I'm fucking there. I got to buy myself one. I got to get myself another one of them ships. I got the A, I've got the D, I've got the E. I know I've got the E. It's not my favorite. It's an ugly ship, but you know what? I still appreciate it. But yes, I got those. But the G, God, the Enterprise G is so beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful shuttle. And yes, it's fictional. We all know it doesn't exist. Who gives a fuck? Okay. Because it's real to me, it's real to a lot of others. And you know something? I want the Enterprise G. I want them to sell that so bad. I'll even buy a model kit just so I can have it. It's great. And so when that was revealed, Picard gets emotional, and that's when Jack goes up behind his dad and says, maybe names do mean things, and names do mean everything, something to that extent. So I thought that was cool. Um, and then we cut to Jack Crusher going on board the bridge of the Enterprise, which is so cool to say because just the Enterprise. Um, and he starts going in there saying, "Helm, set a course for da 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 da. Make sure weapons and torpedo bays ready and da da da." And then you hear Seven's voice, telling Jack, "Get up," because he tries to sit down on the captain's chair. She's like, "Get up, get off the chair." And Raffi and Seven, they're like messing with him. You see LaForge on, you know, who's piloting the ship. They're all giving him shit. And then Jack's like, well, he says, what do you want me to do? I could go into the communications, I could do science, I could do whatever. And she says, no, your position's right here next to me. You're going to be the captain's counselor, ship's counselor, something like that. And so he's just kind of like, all right. Now, this is a throwback to when Seven was on the bridge and she was, it's a stressful time for others, out there. And Jack and her are having this exchange. And it was a cool, natural exchange. And I guess in that scene, he for a moment made her feel better about things, and she acknowledged that. And I think that was a throwback to that moment because then she was like, I would need someone like this on my side to counsel me on whatever mission that they're going through. He's an ensign, so it was cool, to see Ensign Picard, or is it Ensign Crusher? I don't remember. I don't know if they ever acknowledged that. Either way, it's still pretty cool. I liked Jack Crusher, and I think his character was written very well. Him and Liam Shaw are my new Star Trek favorite characters, probably in decades. So we see them sitting. It's Raffi, Seven, and Picard. They're all sitting on the bridge. And so to take off, they're wondering, that Seven, they're Raffi's asking Seven, what's going to be your takeoff? We've got take us out, engage. What's going to be yours? And I love how they never revealed it. Right when she's about to say something, it cuts to the Titan jumping into hyperdrive. Loved it. And that's the last we see. Oh, sorry, not the Titan, the Enterprise. So that was cool. And then we also cut to after that we get to 10 forward, where the crew of the Enterprise from the TNG, they're all there just getting shit faced drunk. They're having a great time as friends. We get to see them, you know, uh, celebrate, give a toast to each other. Picard says something that's beautiful and touching and reveals a poker card and says, "Let's get to the table and let's start playing." So they cut to them all around the table, and this was the moment that I remember thinking, "This is it. This is truly the last time we're going to see these guys together like this." And the scene was very reminiscent to All Good Things, where they're playing poker. You see them, the camera pans out, and Picard's throwing the cards, all of that stuff. You see them all sitting in the circle. While this is all happening, appropriately enough, you start to hear the to creep in Jerry Goldsmith's music, giving us the music send off that he has given in every one of his Star Trek films. And that, of course, is the Star Trek the Motion Picture theme music that plays. And it's just Jerry Goldsmith created one of the most beautiful themes for movies, music, anything. He was a master musician alongside with John Williams and all them. And this moment was so awesome and so beautiful, touching, and such a great send off that to me personally, I if you were to compare the Undiscovered Country send off and this one, it's very hard to tell right now which is better. I don't care which is better, but I really loved the Next Generation send off. It's right up there with Undiscovered Countries. And what a show. What a show. What a season. 10 weeks, 10 episodes, 10 reviews. And I had such a great time watching this show. I had just to see Star Trek being brought up again like this, where everyone on social media was talking about it. All of the fans, more so than the usual when Discovery and Strange New Worlds were there, they all came together. Fans who channeled out woke back up and went, "Wait, what?" Went and watched this. Loved it. Loved it. They even had an IMAX screening for the last 2 episodes. When was the last time Discovery or Strange New Worlds has ever done something like this? Something so wonderful that they want people to go out to the theater and watch this. That's got to say something to Alex Kurtzman when he's sitting there watching the numbers, watching the praise level. I mean, this guy didn't want to be the showrunner of Picard, or neither did Akiva Goldsman. So they gave it to Terry Matalas, and Terry Matalas is a Star Trek fan. I think they did that by accident. They didn't do that on purpose. They just found someone who really appreciated, loved, and is loyal to the franchise. Knows what Star Trek is, knows how to write these characters. He was on fucking set with Jerry Ryan during Voyager. I mean, this dude is like the last bit of the DNA of Roddenberry being brought in to do this series, to do one season, to give us this one in a shot thing, and it was just brilliant. It stuck the landing. It was it just everything was just great. Were all the episodes perfect? No, but that's fine. This was a brilliant and wonderful, riveting season of Star Trek, and I'm just glad that I was alive for it. I'm glad that I got to be here to share it with you guys, to share it with others. I've gotten new subscribers, Star Trek fans out there, people who just want to talk Star Trek and nerd out about this shit. And thanks to this show, I gained new subscribers. You guys are awesome. Thank you. You guys have been really interactive with me, just chatting with me and just nerding out, and I mean, it's great. It's great. And so I had fun doing these. I had a great time, like I said, discussing things with you guys and just shooting the shit and enjoying, something that we all love. Despite that, maybe perhaps I don't like Discovery, but that's fine. We still love Star Trek together. Okay. There's something in fandom that we've all lost the ability to do, and that is to discuss things. I mean, I haven't, but a lot of people have. And listen, and we all need to stop trying to use things as a weapon to attack others. Pop culture is definitely not one of them, which is why people are pissed off about that shit. We're all fans of the same stuff. We may not like everything in that circle, but we're in the circle for a reason. And that's all I have to say about that. Guys, thank you so much. You guys have been awesome. Like I said, I've had fun for the past 10 weeks reviewing this show for you guys. I will be back, of course, with more videos. It's just this show has taken up my time in the week, but I will be back doing my regular movie reviews, television reviews of classics, all sorts of things. So I will be touching base on all of that stuff. But guys, thank you so much. You guys have been awesome. You guys have been brilliant, wonderful, and please be safe. Be safe out there. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Live long and prosper.